So I'm going to be honest. Once the divorce and stuff happened, God laid out a whole road of everything. And it was some things that were just so hurtful. And I was like God really kept me covered, because had I would have known some of this stuff going on, I probably would have lost my mind, like literally. So a lot of the things I didn't find out until afterwards. It was a time where I was literally almost homeless. And I was like, the last thing on my mind is to go back. Like, I'm never going back, because I just felt like that would be considered me failing at that point for me. There's no other sign I can give you. Now you just have to figure it out for yourself. And then it took for me after my divorce to sit in my own self and realize, like, what is it? And I had to go back to me being a young girl, and I was so hopeful for stuff I wanted my dad to do. And it doesn't make my dad a bad dad. It's just a lot of things that he couldn't come through on his promises with. And I was still giving him the benefit of the doubt. And my mom be like, girl, he ain't finna come and do this. And even though he ain't come, I still was hopeful. Like, he gonna come. And I think I still took that type of mentality into my relationship.
Hey, Krystal.
Hey, friend. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm happy to be here.
I'm happy to have you. So for those of you who don't know, Krystal is literally an extraordinary businesswoman, millionaire, doing all the things, okay? Like all of the things. She made wigs pop before they was popping, okay? Has tons of ebooks that help people through like hurt, rejection, divorce, all the things. And we're going to get into those things as a part of her story today.
I appreciate the intro. That was amazing.
Thank you. So give us a little bit of a backstory, because when we were talking, you mentioned growing up that, first of all, you were an older sister,
yes.
The oldest.
Yes.
So give us a recap of like what that was like.
I'm the oldest girl, so I have a big brother, but I'm still the oldest.
Yeah, it don't make a difference.
I'm originally from Flint, Michigan, and it's a little city inside of Flint called Beecher, and that's originally where I'm from. Like, the population is super small. It's very mostly everybody is like family, and if you ain't family, you family, if that makes sense. I don't know, my upbringing was quite different compared to most, and I really didn't realize it until I started going around like other people, you know, because when you're in the circle, it's like everything is regular until you realize and you go around other people and you're like, it's a little different.
Oh, that wasn't supposed to happen.
Like, y'all a little calm. Everybody's calm. My family is totally different. So, I don't know. I think growing up for me was different than most. I would say that.
So give us an example of like what are some of the things that you noticed that were different?
What can I say that won't get me cussed out when I get home? Because my mom is going to be like, what? You said what? I would say my family dynamic is different. My mom was the second oldest girl, and she was more of like the tomboy of the family, if that makes sense. She was the one that would whoop everybody. She was the hardest. And so that kind of trickled down onto me. So she was real tough with me, but real soft with everybody else, if that makes sense. So that made me a lot tougher, which made me kind of like the second mom in our household, if that makes sense. So I would say more of being the oldest and being the one that's kind of calling the shots for everything, versus when I went to my friend's house, their mom was in control, if that makes sense. Like, my mom was always at work. I was like the second mom, if that makes sense.
Yeah. How many siblings did you have?
It's 3 of us all together.
Okay.
Yep, it's 3 of us.
But you were doing a lot of the responsibilities of the household. Absolutely. How did that make you feel once you realized it wasn't normal?
Honestly, at first I was like, okay. When I went over to my friend's house, I can just be a kid. You know what I'm saying? Versus when I'm at home, I'm making sure that we eat. It's the door locked. You know what I'm saying? So it was like when I was able to go other places, I can actually be like a real kid. I can actually enjoy my time over there and not worry about my siblings or, you know, anything of that nature. And I don't know if y'all know about Flint, but it ain't no safe place to live either. So, you know, it's a lot of other things that come into that as well. So I would just say mostly being able to be a kid when I was able to be at other people's house.
Yeah. So recently, you kind of went through a divorce. Was marriage something that you saw in like a healthy light as you were growing up, or what did that look like?
Well, my mom and dad was married.
Okay.
But it was so toxic. It was toxic. And as a kid, you know, you don't realize it until you go through it. And I'm gonna be honest, like when I was growing up and they were going through their divorce, I think I was maybe about 7 or 8. I always looked at my mom like the villain because she was the one that was reacting. You know what I'm saying? So as a kid, you're not mature enough to understand like what's going on. And so I would always just see her so angry and like bitter. And I'm like, what is wrong with you? Like, why is you acting like this? But it didn't take for me to go through my divorce for me to understand how that felt, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So it was like I felt all those emotions. Although I didn't act on it, I felt it. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, and I understood. I'm like, well, this is why she felt like that.
Yeah.
You know, this is why she was acting the way she was. She just didn't have an outlet to kind of, you know, replenish where she should put that energy. And she took it out and was wherever it was at. But after going through it, I'm like, I definitely get it. And then kind of changed the trajectory of my story, like as I've been going through it, you know?
So you didn't see it like in your grandparents, aunts, uncles, none of those
My
things?
grandmother was single. She was single, all that I know of. Her and my granddad was together, but she is originally from Mississippi, and she left Mississippi because he was a very abusive man. So she left with her 6 children, and she had all girls. And when they got to Michigan or whatever, everybody had their kids. You know, my aunts also went through different domestic violence relationships as well, you know. So it was like a pattern of that. I didn't really see them married until I got grown. You know, most of them got married once I was grown. But
And you said you actually witnessed the domestic violence situations, or you just knew of them?
so a lot of stuff we knew, but there was one particular incident, I think I was like in the 2nd or 3rd grade, where my youngest aunt, she was in a domestic violence relationship and she left. And the guy came and he shot her at my grandmother's house on her way to work in the driveway, like 6 or 7 times. And this was back when drawstring ponytails like first came out. And I think the paramedics was like, the only reason why she is still here is because she had that darn ponytail and it slowed the bullet down.
Oh my God.
Like that was crazy.
So she's alive.
She's alive.
But thank God.
She's alive. And she's a tiny woman too. So I'm like, for someone to get shot in close range like that and to still be alive, like, yeah, that's crazy work.
Nothing but the grace and the mercy of God.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So what made you leave Flint, come to Mississippi?
When I graduated from high school, I was 17. And it really wasn't no opportunities like that. Like, it's such a small town. It's like, you know how like a small city and it's like everybody do the same thing. Like everybody wake up, they do the same thing. They go to sleep, they wake up, they do the same thing. You either graduate, you work at a plant, or you work at one of the little factories they have. You know, it was like really wasn't much opportunity. And so I was like, I wanted to do hair. It was a lot of hairstylists there, but it was one on every corner. So I'm like, and up there they do hair good. So I'm like, I got to figure something out because, yeah, like what I'm going to do. And I was like, my dad had moved to the South when I was like in the 8th grade. And I was like, okay, well, I'm going to move down there and see what it's about. And I moved right after Hurricane Katrina. And it was the best decision I ever made, literally. I ain't see it then because then I was like, oh, I'm ready to go home. Like, it wasn't nothing here.
Yeah, I was like,
Because he kind of tricked me low-key. He was like, it's not as bad as it look on TV. And so when I got here, I wasn't expecting it to look like every other house was missing or, you know what I'm saying? Like, they was really just rebuilding from Katrina.
yeah.
So, yeah.
Oh, no, we were here. I remember, I'm like, people
It
lined
was-
up
it
at
was
gas
curfew.
stations. You could only get like 5 gallons of gas.
It
at
was
a time.
crazy.
Yeah.
But I came in December, so all of that kind of passed. Okay. But it still was like, it wasn't a lot of stuff here either.
Yeah. No, like,
It was kind of empty.
I'm sure there are people that are going to question, like, so you left Michigan.
If they know Flint, they know.
And you went to Mississippi?
Listen, I thought everybody had farms here. At first, I was like, bro, I'm finna move down here and they got chickens. But I had visited one time, and when I visited, I was like, he took us like to the casinos and the beach. I was like, oh, Mississippi, not like what I think it is.
Oh, no, baby, we from the coast.
Yeah, so it's two different.
Yeah.
I learned that real quick. I'm like, it's two different things. They ain't got no farm. They definitely got casinos and stuff there.
So you got here, you started doing hair.
I went to hair school. I went to Krystal Beauty College. During that time, it was still kind of rough for me because I was out of my element. Like, my family is a very close knit. And then with me moving, I'm like, I knew I wanted to move. I knew it was the best thing to do. But that's when, like, reality set in. Like, girl, you are 1,000 miles away from home. Although I was here with my dad and my stepmom and her children, you know, it still wasn't like what I'm used to. And it's like, we didn't really have that type of relationship either. And so I had to kind of navigate that as a young woman. But yeah, it was kind of tough in the beginning. I'm not gonna lie.
So looking back, for people who are like at that point of growth, right? What would you say to somebody to do with those uncomfortable feelings as they're trying to grow? Because most people go back.
And you know what? It was a time where I was literally almost homeless. And I was like, the last thing on my mind is to go back. Like, I'm never going back, because I just felt like that would be considered me failing at that point for me, because I came down here to at least finish hair school. Like, if I ain't did nothing else, because I was still in hair school at that time, at least let me finish hair school. I would say you have to go through the uncomfortable stuff to get that breakthrough.
Yeah.
It's so easy to go back. I could have went back and did nothing, you know, but you have to go through that uncomfortable space to get to where you need to be. Because if it was that easy, everybody would be doing it. For real. So it's never going to be easy. And I think a lot of people, they get confused because they see everything on social media. See, back then we really didn't have social media. But now I think a lot of people get so confused because they see everybody moving and everybody posting their highlights, but they don't see what people go through when they're in them thoughts by themselves. And they're trying to figure out, okay, especially if you're an entrepreneur, you know what I'm saying? Like, where I'm going to get this money, this cash flow to come in. And sometimes you got to work a regular job to kind of make things balance out into sales where you get yourself known in that area. But you have to just do it. You have to try different stuff. You can't just settle on what you think your life is supposed to be.
Yeah.
You know?
So did life pan out for you the way that you thought it would?
Child, I know.
So what was that?
Listen, I thought, when we get married and having kids and stuff, I just knew by now I would be somewhere on a boat and probably have like a little farm and, you know, just kind of living with my family and all that kind of stuff and going from there. But now I literally, after dealing with certain things, I had to learn how to decenter all of my thoughts of what I think my life should be. Because I feel like that's where we mess up at. Every time we feel like we're supposed to have this, that's almost like telling God, like, I'm supposed to have this, and this is what I better have, when you don't know what his plan is for you. Yeah. And that's what I really had to learn through my process. It's like, girl, you need to take whatever I give you, because whatever I give you is what you need. And that's what I'm learning now to understand and accept. Like, all them plans I thought I had, none of them measure up to what I have now, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Did you ever go through... Because I know that divorce is sometimes a taboo topic, especially among Christian women.
Yes.
Did you ever go through a point of questioning if you made the right decision?
No. Because the way my situation happened, I just knew God wouldn't put me in a situation that would make me question him, if that makes sense. Like, as far as questioning him, no. But feeling guilt, yeah, you know, and then it took for me to see what his plan was to realize this is why I made you go through that. You know what I'm saying? Because honestly, if I think about it, I got married out of my own ego. It had nothing to do with my ex-husband. Everything had everything to do with me. And so once I realized that, it's like, Krystal, this didn't work out because of you. Like, you picked somebody that you really it wasn't for you. And you knew that. But you acted on what you wanted to do. And I made myself believe certain things because I fasted from sex till I got my husband. Oh, and it was 3 years. I was able to tell people, I waited 3 years before I had sex with me and my husband. And I'm thinking that God gonna bless my marriage because I'm sacrificing all this. He never told me that. That was stuff that I made up in my head. You know what I'm saying? Thinking, because when I was going to different churches, they're like, Krystal, you have to do this. You have to do that. And I'm thinking I'm going by the book. But not knowing that everybody's story is not my story. You know what I'm saying? So it took me a while.
That's almost like an idea that God is a genie, right? If you do it this cookie cutter way, then no matter what, it's always going to work out.
And that's not the case. Because this relationship is completely different with every one of us. And what looks right for you may not fit me, you know, and what condemn you may not condemn me. And I had to learn that finding my own voice, especially in my own spirit. Like, I used to be one of the people that if I was going to a church and they'd be like, well, Krystal, you can't do X, Y, Z, da, da, da. And I would miss out on different things, but I would still be kind of curious. And the curiosity would be more just as a sin as me actually doing it, because now I'm fantasizing and thinking about it. When it's like, at this point, Krystal, would that even be in your mind if that person ever said this to you?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
That's a fact.
Like, you wouldn't even be this was never on your mind until this person brought this to your attention, you know? So I had to really learn myself, like, we're all here to have spiritual experiences with different things. And sometimes it's so hard to go by what other people say and how it made them feel because you're not them. Mm-hmm. That was one of my biggest lessons as a young woman.
I think my pastor preached about that one time. He said the strength of sin is a law. Mm. And so if you don't even know what the laws are, then you may or may not do it. Mm-hmm. But as soon as you know, mm-hmm. it's going to make it that much more tempting.
Absolutely.
For you to do those things.
Absolutely.
It's wild because you said you were ignoring signs before marriage. Mm-hmm. So what were the signs that you felt like you ignored prior to even getting married? One,
I was emotionally unavailable.
So they weren't even about him.
No, everything was all about me. And I honestly feel like everything that was done was because of decisions that I made, if that makes sense. And so that's why I couldn't leave that marriage bitter or angry at him, no matter what he did, because everything that was done because of decisions that I made prior, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. So when I spoke about the part about sustaining from sex for 3 years, not only did I sustain from sex, but we didn't hug, we didn't kiss. So you got to think, as humans, when we come together, everything that I've wired my mind as, if sex is wrong, don't touch me, I shouldn't have this. Mm-hmm. It took so many years for me to get that out of my mind. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? And so I know for sure, like, that man definitely lacked affectionate. You know what I'm saying? If he was looking for a different type of support in different ways, it was hard for me to just click into that. But that's something that people don't tell you because they say, no, save this for marriage. Don't do this. But they don't tell you a lot of them ain't did it before. You know, I'm being honest. They can tell us all this different advice and things that we should do, but a lot of them have never done it. But when you actually do it, it takes a while for your mind. Not only that, and it's easy for people to say, well, that's your husband, you should do. You still have a human body that have feelings, and you already done told yourself for all these years not to do this. Mm-hmm. It is so hard to just snap and to do something when you're already in the habit of not doing it.
Yeah, if you've trained your brain to do something, mm-hmm. it's like the Lord has created us to follow those patterns, which is why the Bible says to train a child up in the way they should go. Absolutely. And when they get old, they're not going to depart from it.
Absolutely.
It's because your brain has been trained that specific way.
Absolutely.
So no matter what, if you train your brain mm-hmm. that sex is wrong in mm-hmm. general, mm-hmm. then you're not going to want to have sex.
Absolutely. Like, don't touch me. Ew, it's nasty. It took a while for me to kind of even get used to, like, the hugging, the kissing, because I had told myself, I knew going in, like, when we were, like, you know, going through, like, getting ready to get married, I knew if I would have hugged him or kissed him a certain way, I'm going to be ready to do something. So in my mind, I was just like, no, I don't want to hug. I don't want to kiss. We was never affectionate in that kind of way prior to us getting married after I had my daughter. When I made my mind up, and I kind of feel like I was extremist a little bit because it's like, Krystal, that is just so unhuman. Like, when I think back, like, you ain't hug him, you ain't give him, like, not even a church hug. I'm like, like, no, I don't want you to touch me in that kind of way, and I don't want to touch you, because I was so scared to be tempted, mm-hmm. and then to be looked at like, oh, okay, y'all living together, y'all having sex before married, because I had got into church, you know? So I feel like a lot of the experiences I have is from not taking the time to really get to learn my own voice, you know? Like, I really should have taken more time to kind of understand what that looked like for me as a woman versus what it looked like for the mother of the church or what it looked like for my sister in the church.
Yeah. Now, I definitely agree with abstaining, but I do think that there's something, like, a way that abstinence could be taught differently. Mm-hmm. Because even when I married my husband, like, he didn't know it until I finally told him a minute later. But, like, on our wedding night after mm-hmm. we consummated the marriage, baby, I went in the bathroom and cried.
Because you felt wrong.
I felt so bad.
But why nobody talk about that?
Actually, I knew that it was going to happen. Oh, okay. I had one small group leader from college mm-hmm. who I love so dearly who had actually expressed that.
Gotcha.
She said when she got married, it took a while. And nobody had ever told her that, so she told us.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Because I felt like I had nobody to kind of talk that to me, but everybody was so, you know, if you're taking this walk with Christ, you need to do X, Y, Z, and da-da-da. And I'm one of them people that's like, I want to get it right. You know what I'm saying? And then, you know, when you first start your relationship up with God, it's like, you know how it is when you're in an intimate relationship with somebody, it's always hot and heavy the first time. So I'm like, I want to get this right now. You know what I'm saying? And so I didn't realize it. And yeah, you do feel like a guilty remorse after doing it. And then it's like, why am I feeling like this? This is my husband. You know, he's supposed to touch me, you know. But then later on, I learned in my walk with God is that there were other things that was making me feel that way. And although my spirit was very sensitive then, I wasn't in a place to handle that. And so I had to go through different experiences to kind of understand what my voice was. And then once I started understanding, then there goes well, that's my husband. He's not going to do that. He wouldn't do that. And then it's like I'm battling myself. You see what I'm saying?
So you're saying mentally you were like, oh, there are other things going on.
It, and I couldn't understand what it was.
Oh, you felt like...
I felt it.
You felt like he was...
It was other things, absolutely.
Other things.
But I could not...
And you're like, no.
I couldn't put my finger on exactly what it was because it's like, you go home, you go to work every day. We both go home, we go to work every day. It's like, it wasn't adding up. But mentally and spiritually, I kept feeling it. I'm like, I don't know what it is, but I know it's something. And so that's why when God told me, like, that is not your husband, it was almost like
you're
a confirmation.
You're married to this man, and God told you that is not your husband.
It's not your husband. It's not your husband. Yeah.
Wow.
So imagine having to swallow that pill. Because it's like, I feel like going through my divorce was also an ego death. Because again, I got married because I thought that was what it was supposed to be. God never said, like, this is the man I have. And which you don't say it like that. You would see it in the different fruits and different things. I didn't have anything to line up with what it was supposed to be. Inside of me not having sex for those 3 years. He never tried me. You know what I'm saying? He respected my walk. I would definitely give that man that. Like, he respected my walk wholeheartedly. And even if he thought I was getting weak, he'd be like, Krystal, no, you know what I'm saying? Like, I really, really give him that. He's a stand-up guy when it comes to that. But it was so many other things that I looked over, and it took for me to go through that, to understand, like, you missed a lot of things because you were so caught up into yourself. You were so caught up into yourself and your own beliefs. And as you didn't even take the time to see, how was this man's relationship with God? He watching you pray, and you're not even inviting him to come pray with you. He would watch me pray every night. Before we got off, he would watch me pray every night. I never invited him, hey, come down here and pray with me. Never. Because I'm like, I don't know how to tell him to come pray. You know, and I'm thinking he should want to come pray if he see me. And then I start thinking, I don't know what gave me this bright idea. I'm like, if he see me doing it, the more he see me do certain things, he'll come and do it. And, you know, I'm like, okay, well, that never happened.
No, well, that's what they tell you in church. Like, you just lead by example.
And that's what somebody had told me. Because I remember having a conversation with someone in the beginning. And she was like, if he see you praying, this was like before we got married and a little bit like in the beginning of our marriage. The lady was like, if he see you praying, he gonna pray. She was like, I guarantee you. But then later on, I had to find out, too. He was dealing with different things with his own relationship with God, but I never asked that. You know what I'm saying? I never asked it because I was just automatically assuming, okay, well, he don't want to do it. But that wasn't right for me to assume that as a wife. So that's why I'm like, I feel like a lot of things that I went through in my marriage, it just kind of prepared me as a person, because a lot of things that I was dealing with and what I was thinking and assuming a person should do, that was only what I would have done, you know?
That's wild. So I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
Because you are this like successful business owner, you've done all these things, and you were successful before getting married.
Mm-hmm.
Was your success ever like an issue in your marriage?
Yes and no. And so I say yes because I found out later on that, you know, he was like, that kind of made him a little insecure, different things. But no, because in the beginning, you know, through our process, he was like my number one cheerleader. You know what I'm saying? And so it was never like he was the kind of guy to be like, I don't want you to do this or that. It was never that kind of guy. He was always like, I watch the kids while you do this. You know what I'm saying? So that's all I would see. But I never took the time to put myself in his shoes to see how it made him feel. You know what I'm saying? Because the dynamic is different. Normally, the man in a relationship is considered certain things, but in this dynamic, it's the woman, you know? And so I didn't take any of that into consideration until I went through my divorce. And then I started asking him questions because we have a really great relationship. Like, we're still very much friends. Like, that is like the brother I never knew I had. Annoying. But I remember asking him certain questions, and he was like, well, yeah, that, you know, certain things would make me feel insecure. And I'm like, why? Like, you know? And then I would talk like to my other guy friends. They was like, first, he a man. Like, that's a man at the end of the day. You know what I'm saying? So certain things that you want to be able to do and you can't because your wife is doing it, although y'all should be a team, it still mentally will bother a man. And that was something I was like, it took me a while to process that. And then once I really took the time to understand, I'm like, dang, I get it.
How did that make you feel, like finding out post?
Yeah, it was like, so I'm going to be honest. Once the divorce and stuff happened, God laid out a whole road of everything. And it was some things that were just so hurtful. And I was like God really kept me covered, because had I would have known some of this stuff going on, I probably would have lost my mind, like literally. So a lot of the things I didn't find out until afterwards, right? And so I'm taking the time and I'm going through it and I'm listening. And then I'm in the process of thinking like, okay, but why would he feel like that? Why would he have to do that? You know? And then getting counsel from other men, because I'm like, asking a woman is something, but you know, a woman only can help me far as a woman can, but a man is the one who's going to be able to tell me what a man feel like. And so when I started getting guidance from men, and I'm like asking, even my therapist was a man, he was like, well, yeah, you got to look at how that looks, how that makes a man feel. Like, and so the feeling behind it, it was just like, but then it still brought me back to the decision. Krystal, this was your decision. So it's like you have to go through whatever it is, and you have to deal with these feelings, understand how this feels, so you don't go on making your own decisions again. You know what I'm saying? You still got the consequences. Even if you think you did everything by the book, you still have to deal with those consequences. And that was one of them. So I definitely felt heavy after that. But learning how to understand as a person, like, this is definitely an experience that, you know, I hope he don't feel like I messed this up because of XYZ, but it really was just one of them experiences that neither one of us knew it was going to happen the way it did, you know?
I see that so often, especially with successful women. Most of them end up staying single because men are intimidated.
And that's still very much the case now, because being single, and like, even when I'm dating somebody, I don't tell them everything. I don't. I just be like, hey, I'm an entrepreneur, and that's it. And they ask what I do. I sell wigs. That's it. I don't even go into everything that I do, because I know that can come off as being, you know, like, dang, she got everything figured out. Where do I fit in? And most men feel like that, because if you meet somebody and they already living in their dream house, they already have their dream car, you know, they already doing their own stuff, you trying to figure out where you fit in as a man. And so my biggest thing that I tell people that I date is, yeah, this is my life now, but if it's ordained by God, whatever piece that you have, whatever piece that I have, when we put it together, we'll be a whole. And whatever that whole look like for us, that's what it is. But it's not what my life look like now, and it's not what your life look like now. Because I also know too, when I was married, God had so much favor on my life. You know what I'm saying? It was so many things that I obtained that even when I used to talk to my husband, I'd be like, you know, God told me XYZ. And so this is how you know that whenever I tell him God told me something, he knew I wasn't playing, because there was one particular incident I'll never forget. I was having this wig fest, and I needed some money to do a build out. And I needed like $23,000. And I told this man, I said, man, God told me to spend the money in my account, and he gonna make sure I'm straight. He was like, what? We got a kid? You finna do what? He like, I don't know about that one. And I was like, I'm gonna do it. God told me to do it. And when I did it, I had a wig event, and I made exactly that amount of money. And so when I was able to put the money back in my account and pay for the build out, my account balance was the same exact way it was. You see what I'm saying? So I'm like, I know.
So you made more than 23,000. Yeah. Okay.
And so I'm just saying, like, I know. So a lot of people are like, well, how do you know that's God? Did you test the spirit? Like, I have been dealing with this my whole life. And it was crazy, because before I was actually married, I would just be doing stuff, but then I'd be like, dang, did this really just happen? You know what I'm saying? But I had nobody to share it with. But to have somebody to share it with and they see it, it's like, it's so different. It's so different.
It's crazy because
And you're even like, you're giving him so much grace, even throughout this entire process.
Absolutely. It's crazy. I scare myself sometimes. I'm not even gonna lie to you. I'd be like, girl, because the old me would have been like, ran it.
The Flint, Michigan you.
Girl, the Flint, Michigan me would have told that man up, okay? I would have been on the busted paper in jail, you know, but I have to really realize, like, it's not that. It's so much bigger than us. You know what I'm saying? And a lot of experiences we have, once people realize and detach from the actual situation in a person and just understand what was this situation trying to teach you. Like, once I got that in my mind, it clicked. It was like an instant click, too. Like, oh, this why this happened.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It wasn't me holding on. So why did he do this? He shouldn't. None of that mattered to me once the lesson clicked. It was more about me. What am I getting from this? You know what I'm saying? How do I need to move going forward? What I shouldn't do? How should I do it? It was one of them type of things. So I really didn't care about the situation, the people involved. It was just something I knew I had to go through to get to that next breaking. And most of the time when you go through like a spiritual awakening or a God trying to get your attention, it be stuff like that, you know, but some people get so redirected into the person and why you make me feel this way and that they forget the lesson in itself. So, yeah, I pulled the lesson out. I gave him the same grace I want God to give me because I'm not going to lie. I know I'm not perfect, you know, and I know it's decisions I know I shouldn't have made, you know, but who am I to hold him at this stance? And I don't want God to do that to me.
Correct.
You know?
So you said you got married for your ego. Was it like, oh, I just have to be married by a certain age, or what was the extent of that?
It was more so like, oh, he cute. I like him. We already got a baby together. He was convenient. It was very convenient because we were friends. You know what I'm saying? And so it was like, I don't have to take time to get to know nobody. And this person know me already. And then, okay, if I'm not having sex and he's still sticking around, you know? Okay, well, and I wasn't even dating. That's the crazy thing about it. So it was like, girl, you wasn't even playing the field. You wasn't dating. You wasn't doing anything. You know what I'm saying? To even see if that's even what God wanted for you. So I think when I say it was my ego and my pride, it was more so of me just jumping into something because it's convenient. We already got a kid together. We like each other enough. It's there. And
so what is the cost of settling for convenience?
Oh, Lord, the cost. For me, I would have to say, as a woman, and I feel like a lot of women can relate, you know it. You know it when you're dealing with certain things. It's a certain way you want to rejoice and you just can't. It's almost like somebody putting a bag over your head and you trying to scream for help and nobody can hear you. You know what I'm saying? And but it's not in a way that is harmful because you're not hurting anybody. You're not screaming loud enough to hurt nobody's ears, but your own. So that's the best way that I can describe.
So you're hurting yourself.
You're hurting yourself. Yeah. You're hurting yourself. And then at the end of the day, I really didn't know this. And I tell people this because they're like, oh my God, y'all look so happy. We were. Like, we didn't even argue like that. We still don't even argue like that. But it's so much different when you're with someone else's husband and you're somebody else's wife. You see what I'm saying? Like, I know he is a husband for somebody, just not me. I know I am a wife for somebody, just not him. And so that doesn't make him a bad person and it doesn't make me a bad person. We just was never supposed to do that. You know, and it happened the way it did. And we got our beautiful children. And it taught us so much because I'm sure he grown too, you know, but it taught me so much as a woman because I never had nobody sit me down and say, Krystal, this, and this. Krystal, understand this. And I think a lot of that kind of stemmed back to my childhood too, because I used to give my dad so much grace as a young girl. And it took for me to understand that a lot of the issues that I had was me not dealing with my childhood trauma. You know, I was giving this man the benefit of the doubt on stuff that it was clear as day. I'd be like, God, give me a sign. He'd write it out for me, show it to me. And I'd be like, God, give me another sign. Can you give me another sign? This sign, just show me, you know?
With the wet rag and the dry ground.
And it's like, Krystal, there's no other sign I can give you. Now you just have to figure it out for yourself. And then it took for me after my divorce to sit in my own self and realize, like, what is it? And I had to go back to me being a young girl, and I was so hopeful for stuff I wanted my dad to do. And it doesn't make my dad a bad dad. It's just a lot of things that he couldn't come through on his promises with. And I would still give him the benefit of the doubt. And my mom be like, girl, he ain't finna come and do this. And even though he ain't come, I still was hopeful. Like, he gonna come. And I think I still took that type of mentality into my relationship.
So you think you gave too much grace?
For sure. Too much grace.
I'm like, what does too much grace look like?
Too much grace looks like if each of you was to come to me and say, I don't like the color green, but I give you a green crayon. And I say, well, this is the only crayon that I have, but you see I have other crayons. You see what I'm saying? And then you just get the crayon and you're holding it because you already told me you don't like it. And I'm wanting you to like it because I gave it to you. You see what I'm saying? My expectations was more than what he ever wanted. He didn't want that. And I had to learn to be okay. If somebody don't want somebody don't want it. You can't make somebody want it. Just like you can't make someone love you a certain kind of way and you can't make someone treat you a certain kind of way. And it don't matter how good or whatever you are, that has nothing to do with you. It's all about them and it's what they want to do. So that's what it looked like for me.
Yeah. So what would you tell the woman who settled for convenience?
Ooh. You saying like saying to myself or the woman right now that's maybe watching this that's
maybe a little of both. What would you have told yourself in that process of settling for like something that was convenient instead of waiting?
Honestly, I feel like I wouldn't have told myself nothing. It was one of them things I had to learn. And sometimes I think we look for answers. And even if I was to tell myself something, I was so hard-headed, I wouldn't have listened anyway. I would have to just go through it and see what it is. You know what I'm saying? And I think a lot of us look for answers in other people when sometimes God wants you to go through different experiences because I'm the only answer you're going to get if you actually feel it. You see what I'm saying? Like the type of pain I went through, I know now. It's a certain red flag I see. I'm like, nope, nope, that ain't going to work for me. You know, but it took for me to feel that type of hurt to know that that's not for me.
Are you comfortable sharing the red flags?
I can share some for sure. Yeah, I can share some for sure. I would say for me, the first sign that a man is emotionally unavailable. Like if you try to run from conflict, to tell me you're not a confrontational person also lets me know that you're a person that would avoid conflict in any kind of way.
Because y'all didn't argue.
We didn't argue. We did not argue. And then there was a lot of tough conversations that we should have had that we couldn't really have. Because if you don't argue and you don't want to be confrontational, you're going to avoid everything at every cost. And so for me to even allow that and for me to say, okay, well, I know you don't like to talk about this. But if somebody's doing something, they're obviously doing something to you. They know how this makes you feel, but they don't want to talk about it. Mm-hmm. Who suffers?
Y'all both do.
Yeah.
The marriage, the children,
mm-hmm. And then, but as the woman, you're going to take on more because it's almost like, well, what am I doing not to, and maybe I need to say something to him different. Maybe he not understanding his way. They understand. You know what I'm saying? But again, it goes back to if they don't want to be confrontational, they don't want to talk. You don't have to be confrontational to have a tough conversation. So for me, if a man tell me, oh, I'm not confrontational, that means you don't like talking about tough stuff. And I know if we get married, it's going to be a lot of tough stuff that come up.
Facts.
And how will we deal with this? That and I would say a man, how he is not only emotionally, but spiritually. Are you able to cover me?
Period.
And it's not just me. I have 2 kids.
Mm-hmm.
Like how are you able to protect me? And so when I tell people this, they be like, well, you're a successful woman and you have this. You're looking at things that I obtained that's materialistic stuff. That stuff can be here today and gone tomorrow. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? But what can you do that can cover me spiritually? When I'm having a bad day, what can you do to help me? You know what I'm saying? Like, because I know what I can do to help you, but what can you bring to the table for me for that?
Because are you even praying for me?
And what you praying? Because I need to know to make sure we on the same table.
I need to know what you're praying. I need to know. How hard are you praying? Do you even... If I am unable to tell you, or if I haven't told you, has the Lord shown you anything about me?
And so here's the thing I'm going to say, because I'm not going to say I need to know what you're praying. I just need to know your intentions.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I need to know that with your intentions and make sure it lines up, it's aligned to what I need as a woman. You know, I'm going to say that because, you know, I know everybody pray different. It looks different for everybody, but I just have to make sure that our intentions are on the same spread, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So how is it having a family into the church and finding your own voice? Was it hard for you to find your own voice? I can see that.
Very difficult. Even still, which is what we were talking about the other day with one of our friends. Oh, sorry.
Oh.
Yeah. That's definitely a difficult part. Like being a PK, trying to find your own voice, trying to figure out where you fit in. Me and my husband were actually talking to our friends the other night about it, and we were like, it's hard because you grow up and it's almost like your parents are the voice of God for you. Mm. So learning to hear God's voice separately is like...
It's different. That's kind of deep because as kids, anyway, you look to your parent as God until you know who God is. Mm-hmm. And then once you realize who God is and you know that your family is anointed and God speaks to them, now you have to try to fill your shoes to see, is God going to speak to me the way he speaks to them? Did you go through that type of situation?
Absolutely.
Gotcha.
And then when I feel like God is leading me differently than what they say, mm-hmm. I have to question, do I even hear from God? Or does he only like really talk to them?
That's deep.
Yeah.
And so how does that make you feel when you realize, like, okay, I'm on my own unique journey. I'm my own person. I have my own spirit. God talks and treats me uniquely in my own way. How do you process that?
So honestly, I didn't fully come into that realization until probably after I got married. And even then it was still slightly difficult to transition. Like, I'm so appreciative for my parents and all that they've instilled in me and taught me, but my parents aren't my covering anymore. Absolutely. My husband is.
Oh, that's a bar.
Yeah. So it's like, and then separate from my husband, God's still going to require me to have my own walk with him as well. But because I was so dependent on them hearing the voice of God for me for so long, when I did start dating initially, there was a guy that I was dating prior to my husband, and I wasn't sure if I was supposed to be married to him or not. And I kind of was relying on him to hear from God to know whether or not we were supposed to get married. And so I ended up stuck in that relationship for about 3 years.
So a long time waiting for that.
Yeah. Because from jump, he felt like we were supposed to get married.
Right.
So I just took that as like, oh, well, I know he hears from God, instead of developing that personally for myself.
But how does that look for you after that, though? Like, once you realize you got to hear God's voice for yourself, what did you go to in yourself to realize, like, I have to figure this out in myself? How did you do that?
I don't know how I did. I went to therapy, honestly. And my therapist was like, God doesn't necessarily talk to pastors more or honor them more because they're pastors, but he will hold them more accountable.
Absolutely.
Because they're pastors. And that was the first moment where I was like, oh, that's a little freeing. So then I can trust, like, yes, my pastors are God ordained and God speaks to them and he, like leads them. But also it enabled me to give them grace too. Because when I looked at them as the voice of God, I had very little grace for them for all the mistakes that they made.
Absolutely.
So after that point, it was like, oh, my mom's a human. Like, oh, my dad's human, right? Like, they're going to get mad. They're going to get upset. And I have to learn to forgive them because they're still having a human experience.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the misconceptions of a preacher kid. Like, come from someone who my family was not into church like that. And then when you would see or you have friends that have a different type of covering, you always see them stray away. Like, them kids would always do the craziest stuff. I'm like, bro, you sneaking out the window? Wait, why are you doing this? And it's almost because they feel like they're trying to find their voice and doing mischievous stuff because they're trying to see, like, who am I, But for you to be able to find who you are without having to search like that, it's different. Was going to therapy different for you versus?
It was. So personally, I had to find a therapist that wasn't even in our city.
Absolutely.
Nowhere close, because I'm like, I learned early on, I can't talk to everybody about my parents. I can't talk to anybody in our church. And we have a very successful ministry. So I'm like, I don't want to talk to anyone within our city either, because they might go to our church one day.
They're human too, and they're going to be judgmental in some kind of way.
Yeah.
They're human.
They're supposed to be unbiased, but there's some stuff I might tell you about my parents that you might be like, oh, I'm never going to go to that church.
Absolutely.
And I didn't want to be a hindrance to them either.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So I actually, which is funny, I'm getting ready to plan. It's called the PK Getaway. This first one I'm doing in Gulfport. It's just going to be like a 1-day event. We're going to do like bonfires, all those types of things. But it's really a network of PKs who can just heal together.
Absolutely.
So that they know, like, oh, I have somebody who knows intimately what I'm going through. They know what I am experiencing, and I can freely talk to them, because they're probably never going to come to my church.
Absolutely.
They're not going to judge my parents, because they know their parents crazy
Absolutely.
too, you know. And so it's something that eventually I feel like the Lord has kind of called me to bring to different cities.
I think that
where it's like a retreat where you can come, you can get away. And my parents want to do something for like leaders, kids, but I want to do PK adults.
Absolutely.
For the ones who are like, I done been through some stuff in church and I love the Lord, or maybe I don't, but I don't really fool with the church no more either.
Gotcha. So you just meet them where they are?
Yeah.
That's dope.
Yeah. I appreciate it, and I appreciate that question.
I just thought of it. I'm like, I wonder, how is it? You know, because you've known covering your whole life.
Yeah.
Versus someone who don't know how it feels. So I have to kind of learn how to accept certain things where you have to learn how to embrace it. So we have two different spectrums of things that we're learning, you know?
And I've had to figure out how to give grace for covering too. Yeah. Because I was like type 1, type A, like whatever, you know, you would attribute to that. So I'm like a stickler for rules and always trying to be perfect and always trying to walk this straight and narrow.
So is that hard though? Because the church look at the preacher kids at a certain kind of standard. Like they hold y'all accountable and look at y'all as a light, you know, not only because y'all the preacher kids, but it's like, you know, not say y'all on a pedestal, but it's almost like y'all on a pedestal. Everybody looks to you all. Like, I was dealing with that though.
It's very difficult. And there were a lot of times where it made me not like church, not like church people. There have been certain journeys that I've been on where like, I'm like, oh, I don't like my parents. And then I like my parents and I don't like the people. And then I'm like, I like my parents, I like the people, but I'm burnt out.
Yeah.
And I don't want to go to church for real.
Yeah.
And so I've been through like every age and stage of that. And then people put you on under a microscope. I've had people call my parents. Like I was in high school, maybe 9th grade at the time. And the lady saw I got on Facebook. And she called my mom.
Because you was on Facebook?
Because I got on Facebook. She saw I was active on Facebook. There have been other times, even as an adult now, where they'll be like, your parents know? I don't know. And I don't care.
I'm grown.
Yeah.
But does that make it hard for you now as the adult in you to make certain decisions without second guessing, like what people are going to say, or like trying to get out of the limelight of I'm living for people, but I'm trying to figure out what Isha actually wants?
Yeah. My husband asks me all the time, why do you care?
Yeah. It's so hard not to care, but you got to learn not to care. Yeah.
It's natural for him to just like make a decision, not think about
Absolutely.
anybody except our little family.
Absolutely.
And
you have so much more.
Like, as soon as I think a decision, I'm like, oh, well, my mom's going to say this. My dad might say this. It might affect my siblings this way.
Yeah.
Like, thinking about people at the church. And it just comes almost second nature.
I can see that.
It doesn't mean that I'm going to make that decision
based on them, but you
based on
that.
that. But it does, it is a thought.
Nonsense.
Yeah. So, back to you. So, I appreciate that little pause. As far as you are concerned, you mentioned that, like, with your now ex-husband, you mentioned that he at one point told you that he was jealous and
Insecure more so.
insecure.
Yeah.
Okay. So
This was afterwards, though, yeah.
after. It makes me wonder about people who have others close to them, almost like a Judas of sorts. Like, how do you handle someone being so close to you who feels some sort of way about you? Or have you ever had friends like that? Or,
You know what? That's been my life story. Not only friends, it can be family members. You know, sometimes when God have a calling in your life, you don't see your light. And that was always my issue. Like, I can be around anybody because I'm like, I don't think of myself as, oh, I'm up here and you're down here. I don't view things like that. I'm just, like I said, I'm a human experience. If me and you vibe, we vibe. I don't care what you do for a living and where you at. If we're having a good conversation, we're having that. But I didn't realize when you hold certain type of lights, it attract the good and the bad. And then I feel like this one particular spirit, every journey of my life, this one particular spirit just continues to come. And it gets more intense. Every time, it's like a video game. Like, once I beat it one time, it's done. But then it comes back as another test. But this time, it's almost like, okay, you outsmarted me this way. I'm going to come in a different way. And then...
So what is the spirit?
Honestly, I can't tell you what the spirit is. I can tell you what it looks like. It's one of them. It's like a spirit that it comes on a person that it always comes like a person that's really starts off genuinely nice. It always comes in a form where I notice small things, but then again, I overlook it. It's almost like, okay, it's just maybe, no, yeah. And then it start getting more and more intense. And it's almost like, how long will you take to ignore certain things? You see what I'm saying? And it would just keep getting more and more intense to the point where I have to say something. And it's almost crazy because, like, I have a prediction, like, me and this person finna get into it, I can tell. And 3 months later, it's like, boom. My sister be like, man, you just said. I'm like, I felt it. I knew. And it's almost like how I handle the situation lets me know if I beat that test, if that makes sense. Like, am I going to be overly dramatic, overly emotional? Am I going to give it power? Or am I going to simply walk away and understand that this was the lesson, take what I got from that person, and leave?
Yeah.
And that's what I've been able to do. Now, younger, I was going off like, why would you come around me if you felt this way?
Yeah.
Like, why would you come around me and then you want to talk about me instead of correct me? I don't know. It took a while for me to identify what that spirit was, but like having different situations, it was like I'm able to peep it. I'm like, up, here we go again.
Yeah.
See what we going through this time. But yeah, it comes in different people. It comes in family members. It comes in best friends, acquaintance. It's like it'll always try to come. It'll find a way to get close to me. And then once they get close, it'll drop the ball. And it's like, how do I handle the situation once the ball is dropped?
Yeah.
And it's weird because I'm like, I wonder if anybody else have this, like, do anybody else deal with that kind of stuff? Or is it just, I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay, because I'm like, it's kind of weird. Once you notice the pattern in your life, like once I sat back and I realized like a pattern, I'm like, this is definitely a pattern. And it's weird because it'd always be a woman. It's always a woman.
Does that make you leery towards like female friendships?
Oh, and that's the weird part. My sister's gonna be like, Krystal, like, you didn't see that? Like, why do you keep doing this? Because I'm like, they're like, you just love everybody. I'm like, yeah, this is, they be like, don't bring nobody else. Like, are you vetting these people? Like, why are you paying attention? I'm like, I just love people. Like, I'm a people lover. And I'm always going to see, I feel like one of my biggest flaws is that I always see the kid in somebody, the vulnerable side of that person first, right? Even if I see all the red flags, I will ignore all of that, but I will see the part of you that you might not even see in yourself. And it's the you before you corrupt with any other stuff, right? And so no matter what everybody else see, I don't see that. Like, you can be like, girl, I know about her. She did it. If I don't see it, I don't see it. So I don't go based on what nobody else tell me. I go based on what I see. But then it's like, once I start seeing the other stuff, I'm already stuck on the potential of how you were before things changed into you, you know?
Yeah.
So that'd always be my lesson.
You get stuck seeing potential instead of seeing the red flags. Yeah.
And then by the time I see it, like, damn, my God, why you didn't give me a sign? He looking at me like, girl, I showed you so many scenarios and you just kept on going. But yeah, I feel like that's the pattern for me.
That's really good. I love to see that you're at a place now where you're like healing, you're growing.
Thank you.
You're not letting anything hold you back.
Mm-mm.
Nothing.
No.
If you had to describe your healing journey in one word, what would it be?
Messy. It's definitely messy. It's messy. Because you can feel amazing one day and the next day you can feel like crap. And then later on that night, you be like, you know what? Oh, okay. And then you back down again.
Yeah.
And then gotta just come out of nowhere and give you a confirmation. Because sometimes when you're going through your journey, you have to realize most people don't even take the journey. It's so easy to do proactive things to look like you're doing certain things or that you're in this particular place.
Yeah.
But to really get to a place where you're trying to get a Christ-like conscience, it's totally different from having those type of actions, if that makes sense. So I feel like it took me a while to understand, like, Krystal, it's not going to be perfect.
Yeah.
It's going to be some days where you're going to just cry all the time because you have to release that, and then it's going to be some days you don't even think about anything. Yeah. And then a song can come on and I could be thinking about something like, oh my God, why did this come on? You know what I'm saying? So it's never like a finish line. You just got to keep going. But it's definitely messy. It's not as messy as it was in the beginning, but it's still messy.
It's like you're getting a little bit of organization in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm enjoying the mess because I'm like, you know what? I'm learning to just roll with the punches.
Yeah.
Versus trying to hide from them.
Absolutely. I love that. Just taking it head on. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
I want to pray. I'm going to pray for you, but I also want to pray for women who are kind of struggling with that complacency. Yeah.
And what it looks like, Sue.
You ready?
Yeah.
Father, I thank you so much for Krystal. I pray that you would continue to bless the works of her hands, that you would continue to enlarge her territory, that you would show her specifically who she should and should not be connected to. I pray that you would shower her with your wisdom and your favor like never before, and that you would keep her children safe from all hurt, all harm, all danger. Even as she's continuing to grow and develop, I pray that you would keep her heart safe in this season. I thank you, Father, for her testimony today, and I pray for those women who they've chosen convenience. I pray that you would begin to wake up their spirits to what it is that you do have for them. Wake them up so that they're not stuck or spiritually stagnant in the season of their lives. But I pray that you would show them specifically what to do, what steps to take, that you would honor their next move in you. I thank you, Father, that you'll give them a peace that surpasses all understanding, even as they move forward. And it's in Jesus' mighty name that we do pray. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you for joining me.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me. I definitely appreciate it.
Yeah, it's good.